Joshua, he's that kid that you pray for. And so much more. I remember I felt like Hannah. I longed for a son to hold, a son to carry on the legacies of winning the trophies from sports, following even in my footsteps of when I played football and brought home the trophy. And, when Joshua was born on that tiny little island in the middle of the Pacific, and I remember being so scared and just so nervous, but when they laid him on my chest, everything changed. I knew that was the son that God chose for me, but he chose him for something so much bigger, and that Joshua was going to do something that would absolutely rock the world. People are drawn to Joshua. He is the Mr. Hustle Award on the baseball team. He wants to please. He's the slow, methodic wrestler. And you don't think that he's, going to be able to take it out. And the next thing you know, you're down and pinned for the 3 count. One day at school, we were waiting for his sister to come out. And there was a little girl who was carrying a lot of books, board that she had done a presentation with, plus her backpack. And she tried to open the door and she dropped everything. Before I could even react and say, "Hey, Joshua, would you pick that up for her?" Or pick it up myself, he, without missing a beat, reached down, picked up everything for the little girl, and gave it back to her and told her to have a good evening. That's more than what I prayed for. From time of conception, I look and see that he had to battle, that he had to fight. From thinking that he was an ectopic pregnancy and going through an early surgery, to battling surgeries of getting his tonsils, his adenoids taken out, to being that kid with just so much passion and so much energy that he ran around constantly and when just finally collapsed into an emotional mess at night because he was so tired of the passion that he put into everything all day. And he was active. He was never inside, never sitting down, and loved the outdoors, which led him to want to go kayaking. And that day on the river, he had his own kayak. He was so excited. He was tethered to his dad with his life vest on, and just the smile radiated from him, snapping that Slim Jim button in his mouth, saying, "Look at me," splash in the water, taking the rapids, when little did we know that 10 minutes later, that 4 out of 5 of our kayaks would capsize, and Joshua's would unfortunately be one of them, and that a downed tree and that river would get attached to his life vest, and he couldn't free himself. And as I stand on that riverbank, and I prayed because I didn't know what else to do, I began to call people to pray because I knew that God was our only hope at that time. And when they finally got him free after almost 10 minutes of being under the water, and I saw his lifeless body as they passed him up without even taking him out of the river that day, just doing CPR on him, on that tree that tried to take his life that day. And I looked at him and his lifeless body, and all my CPR training and everything that I've been taught scientifically, I knew that the hope was gone medically. And I remember looking at my son and just collapsing over a tree that day and saying, "My son will not die today." And they took him to the hospital, and 40 minutes later, with not even a doctor in the room, his heart began to beat again. And I believe, just with that chosen purpose that I felt the day that they laid him on my chest when he was born, it was for that purpose that God put the beat back in his heart. The small community hospital that he was in we knew wasn't able to handle him with not even a pediatric ventilator. So they had Life Flight on the way 15 minutes out. But again, it felt like the world was crashing in around us because there was a storm and the helicopter couldn't make it to pick him up. So they had to take him again by ambulance with just, your heart not beating for 40 minutes, with his lungs being full of water, a total wet drowning. They had to bag him and take him 45 minutes to meet that helicopter. But in that time, the fight began to come back in Joshua. And then when they got him to the larger university hospital, he fought them so hard when he was being intubated that he lost a tooth. But as he lay there, and as they go in and they can tell by the first CT that his brain was already swelling just hours after due to not having oxygenation to it, we knew that the next 72 hours were critical for him. So they had to put him into a coma. At 72 hours, he was stable enough to go for another MRI to see, and they found that his brain had swelled so much within 72 hours that it herniated into his brainstem. I told my husband that day before they brought the results of the MRI to us, I said, Gary, you need to prepare for the worst. And he said, quit being negative. I said, I'm not. Because I said, if it went better, then man would get the credit for this. This is so much bigger than you or I could ever imagine. And I said, when man can no longer do anything, and when it's impossible, that's when God shows that all things are possible with him. And as we were going through this, I had a list of several different things. I was willing to try anything to make my son better. And it's just like God would put those things into my path for him when he wanted them to, and his timing. And as I began to look at this, you connect with other families that are going through. And I was on Facebook one day just looking through things, and I saw a post where another drowning victim, a little boy, had drowned, and he had found pediatric chiropractic, and his head control was less than my son's. And within 3 days, I saw a difference in that little boy. I saw a change from hundreds of miles away. And I thought, if it can do that for him, what can it do for my son? Because I know my son, and I know what he's capable of, and I know if you give him just a little bit of push, that he's going to take it and he's going to run with it, and he's going to go and exceed every expectation that is given to him. So I picked up the phone. Actually, I think I stalked them on Facebook until I got an answer. And I remember Dr. Tony messaging me back and saying, hey, I can set you up with someone. Would you like my staff to call you? And I said, absolutely, because I've probably, messaged you guys every hour until I got something back, because what I saw was the hope that I knew was going to drive my son to that next level. And within just 2 weeks of being here, we have seen him come so far that we are excited to say he's going to throw out the first pitch at his Little League opening day. It's been almost 10 months since Joshua had his voice. So it's been my job as his mother to be his voice. And when you find something as great that could change your child's life, especially for kids like Joshua, who can't physically speak for themselves right now, PWC can give them that voice. But it's us that have to take that step to get them to the place. Talk to PWC. You say, well, I can't get to Crystal Lake, Illinois. I'm in California. I'm in West Virginia. Don't let anything steal your hope, because guess what? I believe PWC is hope bringers. They are not just stuck to Crystal Lake. They will give you hope around the nation, and they are not in it for them. They will connect you, and they will do what it takes to get your child their voice back. I am Monica Shirk, and we will make it through this storm.